CNN is switching up its lineup. The network will be moving host Poppy Harlow and Phil Mattingly off of mornings. Casey Hunt will anchor from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. CNN News Central will air from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Jim Acosta will host in the 10 a.m. hour, and Pamela Brown will launch a new show at 11 a.m., according to Puck. This comes as CNN railed against another journalist, Tucker Carlson, who recently went to Moscow, allegedly to interview Russian President Vladimir Putin. Here's CNN's Erin Burnett.
A massive shakeup in Kyiv coming as Putin is trying to court the MAGA GOP in the United States. In fact, one of the leaders of the MAGA GOP is in Moscow tonight. It's the man you see here with the MAGA leader Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson. Possibly there in Moscow to interview Putin. Definitely there as a Putin-supporting celebrity. Just listen to how Russian state media is breathlessly celebrating his visit.
Independent journalist Tucker Carlson has flown to Russia from the U.S. via Turkey to Vnukovo Airport. He saw Spartacus Ballet at the Bolshoi Theater, had lunch in a nice restaurant, went for a ride around town, rode the subway. He charged his smartphone via a USB port and connected to a fast and free Wi-Fi internet.
You know how I sometimes joke that Kamala Harris's speeches sound like she's just pointing out things around the room? That's what that read sounded like. He plugged in his USB cord. He rode the subway. Right. Sorry, but in addition to this whole staff mix-up at CNN staffers behind the scenes have raised concerns internally about CNN's seeming pro-Israel bias. Per The Guardian, CNN staff say network's pro-Israel slant amounts to journalistic malpractice. We covered that a little bit earlier this week. It is interesting to see that all does not seem well in the state of CNN. What do you make of the new lineup for the mornings?
I don't know, seems fine. It seems like they just keep moving the same people to different time slots and then being surprised that it's not working. This is all the regular, normal CNN people. It's not actually some astonishing shakeup. It's just a signal that whatever they're doing is not bringing in the ratings that they want. They've been in a perpetual rating slump since the exit of Trump from the national spotlight, since the kind of COVID bump that everybody at the media got went away, and they're struggling to find people who bring in audiences. I don't really have anything against any of the people mentioned in this conversation. I've seen perfectly adequate commentary from all of them, but what they're doing is not working. And then I don't see that they have any plan to fix it because again, these are minor changes. Now you're going to go to this time slot. Now you're going to go to this time slot. It's annoying. I can tell you that from a hosting perspective when you just get shuffled to different time slots. But so it's not a vote of confidence when it happens. But I don't think they've really figured out their problems, and I don't think complaining that Tucker Carlson again. We talked about this yesterday. When they do the interview, if it's bad, if it's sycophantic, if it just valorizes Putin and doesn't ask him any serious, tough questions about his authoritarian hold over Russia or his unjustified attack on Ukraine, then fine, criticize it. That's totally, but the idea that he would go there and do it, that criticism makes no sense because CNN itself has done interviews with even more controversial figures than Vladimir Putin, more vile and evil people, and that's a part of journalism. It is never considered to be a bad thing in the past. Again, if you don't like it, you can criticize it. We'll talk about it. We'll criticize it. I'm not co-signing every interview Tucker's ever done, but they're really railing against the fact, almost from a jealous. It does come across a little desperate and jealous that they can't get these kind of interviews.
And hypocritical, as you just alluded to, and Glenn Greenwald pointed out a few hours ago online. In 1997, CNN interviewed Osama bin Laden about why he declared jihad against the United States. That's what journalists have always done. And now Erin Burnett insinuates Tucker Carlson is a traitor for interviewing Putin. Now, look, again, depending on how the interview goes, it could seem like a softball interview, which then does raise these questions about why and whether Tucker Carlson is trying to kind of advance Putin's agenda or whatever you want to call it. But until then, this does seem really premature, and it does seem to raise what's been an ongoing criticism we've had of CNN and legacy media, which is that they seem to think that the magic bullet to cure their ratings woes has to do with, we'll move this person to a new slot, we'll get this more kind of famous legacy person in this role. We'll talk more about Donald Trump in a critical way. Let's get more of these never Trump Republicans on the air. And it really feels like that's the exact opposite of what people want, because what they're presenting to the public is a fiction of political diversity.
Yes.
If everyone on the show is a never Trump Republican, if a never Trump Republican is the star, one of the stars of MSNBC in Joe Scarborough, or people who are formerly George Bush II's spokeswomen having these prime positions on the show. When you have the President of the United States looking to a never Trump Republican for political advice, as was reported earlier this week, that he loves to watch Morning Joe and Joe Scarborough. At the end of the day, I think that's a real representation of how there really is just one uniparty, and it is never Trump establishment folks trying to figure out how to wrest attention from a growing number of disaffected voters who are looking elsewhere for political content and elsewhere for political parties that actually meet their political interests.
Because that it attaches, or it's related to their problem, their failure to draw an audience, because they keep returning to the same well for intellectual diversity, but it's actually people who don't disagree with the rest of the kind of liberal progressive hosts, especially on the issues they most commonly cover, which is the Trump administration and the policies going on.
They're like star belly sneeches. They're like, half of them have stars in their bellies, half of them don't. They're otherwise identical, and they're making so much hay.
And what do they say at the end of that book? You can't teach a sneech. That's a good one.
I think that's what's happening.
I was going to mention a minute ago, it was my views about interviewing or platforming controversial speakers were formed very early on when I was at the University of Michigan. It was at the same time that Columbia University's President Lee Bollinger brought the president of Iran, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad at the time, came to Columbia to speak. And it ended up being, Bollinger had previously been the president of the University of Michigan, so it ended up getting discussed on campus a lot. It was discussed in classrooms, discussed in the campus paper op-ed pages, which is where I worked. And a lot of Republicans were very mad and offended by it. John McCain, who was the presidential nominee at the time for the Republicans, I think, denounced it. But then when Ahmadinejad spoke on campus, and then he was interviewed by Lee Bollinger, and he ended up looking pretty ridiculous in several instances. The gay marriage debate was going on, so he was asked about gay marriage. He said there's no gay people in Iran, and the whole audience laughed at him. And it seemed like it was like this was not a harmful thing that happened. This was probably a good and educational thing for everyone involved. And the idea that Republicans who at the times were, I was thinking, even from like a more hawkish Republican standpoint, it isn't necessarily bad to do this, because now you have liberal pro-gay marriage students seeing how kind of ridiculous and backward this foreign adversary is on this issue. It seemed worthwhile having these conversations. So I've always been for platforming the person, doing the interviews, letting them talk, letting them speak, as you should actually interrogate them. But it's not harmful to do that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this interview at the end of the day. Let us know what questions you would ask if you were in Tucker Carlson's position in the comments. I'm really looking forward to reading those. Stick around. More Rising after this.